Okay, welcome everybody and a very good evening to all of you. Today we have gathered here for the pre-probe lecture of the physics department. Every year we have this student research seminar called Probe, which is going to happen on Monday the 7th March, and we typically hold a lecture on some topic of interest to everybody uh, on the eve of the probe. So since tomorrow is a holiday, we are going to have this lecture today. What is very interesting in today's pre-probe lecture session is that we are also going to inaugurate our small little telescope that physics department purchased 2 years ago, just before the pandemic started. So it took 2 years for this telescope to see its first light, we should say. And so, who better than to have Mr. Arvind Paranjpe, who is the director of Nehru Planetarium, to come and inaugurate the telescope and, of course, deliver a lecture on extraterrestrial life and search for it. This is a topic of interest to physicists as well as common people. And as physicists, we would like to understand in terms of science why it is of interest to a physicist, an astrophysicist to be interested in the study of extraterrestrial life. So that is what Paranjpe sir is going to explain to us today. He has had a very illustrious long career of almost 40 years in astronomy, amateur astronomer. He's a professional amateur astronomer, I can say, an amateur professional astronomer. And he does a lot of things for popularizing astronomy as well as science. He spent almost 20 years in Inter-University Center of Astronomy and Astrophysics in Pune, where he was the PR head, and he really took astronomy and astrophysics to the public and the school children. And in last 10 years, he is at planetarium and also trying to do the same job. So I welcome Mr. Arvind Paranjpe here for a very fruitful, I hope, a beginning of a very fruitful collaboration to come in the years that we are going to be associated with the Nehru Planetarium. So over to you, Mr. Paranjpe.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this kind introduction, and very different from a normal written out introduction that people give. Yes, it's true. I hope. Yeah. Hello. Okay. So you can hear me right now. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Mic testing. 1, 2, 3. Hello. Yeah, I did this job for many years, so I know what goes behind it. Okay. Maybe I think I should lower the mic a bit. Okay, so yeah, I had this very. I mean, I always say, people ask me that when am I going to retire? So I always say that, look, my life, so there is no question of my retiring, except that 3 organizations have been they have been paying for my livelihood in terms of whatever they call salary, but otherwise it has all been hobby and enjoyment last 40 years or so. Well, uh, today, as ma'am said, that we are going to talk about this: are we alone in the universe, or searching life elsewhere in the universe? And as she very rightly said, that I am going to talk only on the uh, basis of what science we know, and nothing more. I mean, we will not talk about superstitious or gods and demons and things like that. We will talk only about what science we know and what science has come across. We will not talk about anything that science has not come across. Okay, so we will. Achha. I'll take this. Oh, something has gone wrong now. Okay. So let us begin. And when I'm saying that we'll go talk about this searching for life based on what we know. So before that, we talk about, we need to answer a couple of questions. Okay. First of all, we'll have to understand what do we mean by life, and then we have to try to find out how it all started. This is the question that we will try and explore in this talk, and then we'll talk about what happens next. Okay. So what do we know about life? Okay. So we do have what information do we have about it? So what you see is that wherever in the observable universe, that universe that we can observe, okay, we see elements and molecules identical to those which are there on the earth, right? And none other. So we don't see anything that is there which are not seen on earth, and similarly we don't see anything which is, am I going backwards? Yeah, I think so. And also, as I was telling you, that we have not seen life elsewhere in the universe. That is another very important factor, that we have not seen life in the universe. Okay. So then comes the question that are we something very special that we have not seen it? Maybe we have not seen it for some reason, but are we something very special? Okay. So then what do we know about the life? So what we know is that we are tremendously complex system, and that has ability to duplicate and protect itself. See, you take any small animal, any small creature, they know somehow or the other to protect themselves. Given one very lifetime example, um, at Ayuka, as well as many of you might have known that there is a great telescope, Ooty radio telescope in near Ooty. You see, it's a long array, I think 1.2 kilometer long cylindrical dish which rotates, which is along the north-south line. It's a large dish and which rotates along that axis. So this antenna is made out of large number of fine wires. So what I'm told is that when the antenna was erected, the birds used to come and get hit inside the antenna. They used to come and hit the antenna and would die. Now today they say that people have seen the birds would come closer to antenna, fly up and then go down. So somehow this bird over the evolutionary period, they have realized that this place we have to cross like that. We don't have to. Similarly at Ayuka, if you see the Ayuka library, in the initial days, there used to be a large window pane, and every now and then bird used to come and hit the glass trying to go inside or cross, but that has reduced considerably in last 20-30 years that we have. So initially we used to actually pick up bird and then feed it and see if it survives. Well, so that means that information is, I mean, they know how to protect themselves, how to duplicate. Okay, and this is the second point which I was telling you, that life is based on information. The information is carried on, and which it contains contains the process of duplication and preservation. Similarly, like the some dog, the rabbits, right? The rabbit hole. The dogs start chasing it. The babies know exactly if there is a danger how to go into the rabbit hole. They don't need to be taught. So somehow the information is carried out from one generation to another. So then we talk about what is the basis of life. Okay, uh, what we see is that what life all around us is based on, it's a chemical life, and this also has been taught to you that our life is a carbon-based life. We have not seen, it's all our carbon. Whatever life that we see is a carbon base, and what do we have in carbon? Very interesting property of carbon, and that is, by the way, I'm also told that there are some non-science students, right? Is there non-science student here? Okay, okay. So you know basically that, okay, what the carbon bond and things like that, okay. But then what it does is, or what we know is that it's a stable chain, first of all, and capable of extracting, storing and utilizing energy, that carbon does. Okay. People have also talked about the life which is, sorry, why life which is based on silica. See, on the periodic table after carbon you have silica. So people have talked about that could we have life which is based on silica, in the sense that you have a stone-like structure which has all the properties that we have taught so far, and it duplicates, preserves, etc., etc. But it is made out of silica, not. However, the problem with silica is, okay, why they talked about it, silica is 135 times more common on Earth. So why not silica? The problem is that silica makes a weaker bond. Okay, so it disintegrates. Okay, and cannot make double bonds so easily the way carbon can make. Okay, so people have not ruled out entirely that silicon-based life, but at the same time, we have not too many people are actually working on this kind of a life form. Okay, then there is an interesting idea of life in the non-chemical form. Okay, a non-chemical life. So what we mean by non-chemical life is that I'll show you. This is 1 minute. Yeah, sure. See, there was a very interesting idea which was proposed by Professor Fred Hoyle. Okay, quite back in time. Professor Fred Hoyle is who was a PhD supervisor of Jayant Narlikar, Professor Jayant Narlikar. Okay, he came up with the idea that uh, what is happening in our brain. The electrical signals are passed on, okay, from one point. So, and brain does all sorts of calculation in one go, continuously. So now you can imagine that even if you are sitting here, some attention is diverted, people talking outside. Okay, you have some other thing, probably a mosquito comes and then stings you and then you hit it. So many applications are, processes are happening in our mind in uh, listening to my talk or I am talking to you. Okay, so that is happening. So you have a brain which is electrically passing on signals and controlling the whole actions. So what Fred Hoyle theorized is that suppose you have a molecular cloud which has all the elements what we have on Earth. So can that cloud be alive? Can you consider that? See, you don't need to have limbs and all that. Okay, can you consider that as a life in itself? And then he wrote a academic paper and sent it to journal, and this paper was not accepted. And after that, he wrote this book, The Black Cloud. It's a beautiful book, and I will share, if you don't have, I will share its PDF. It's worth reading it once or twice. It's a science fiction kind of a book, but it's a completely scientific book. Everything is complete science. There is no non-scientific terms in that. So in that book, what he talks about it is a huge cloud, which is which has all the properties. The cloud itself knows how to navigate from one place to another. That is Newton's second law. I mean, you throw something and then you go into the opposite direction. Cloud knows how to protect itself, how to multiply, how to duplicate. And then the cloud comes to Earth because it wants to take energy. And that what energy? So it comes to the sun and start getting energy for itself. Now I will stop here. I won't say anything. It's a PDF copy. I can share with you. Think about it and do read this. It's an amazingly written story. Just one line that at the time he wrote the story, the story actually ends in 2017 or 2019. We have already crossed 2019. So at that time, 2019 was too far back forward in time. Well, so that was the I'm sorry, I again and again make this mistake. Okay. So then, well, coming to the science part of it, so there are two thoughts about how the life is. That one is panspermia, that is the seed of life exists everywhere in the universe, and whenever that seed finds a place which is a good place for it to survive, okay, it flourishes there. And how does it flourish, or how does life get transported from one place to another? And that is what Fred Hoyle and Vikramasinghe wrote this beautiful paper. And what they said is that seed of life can sit on a comet and go from one star to another. So suppose you have life is formed on some planet like Earth, okay, this life seed can go to another star sitting on a comet and goes to the other star, and whenever that life finds a good place, it flourishes there. And how does it do that? It does it by this meteor shower. You see, why do we have meteor shower is basically because the comet has left large number of debris behind, and every time Earth passes through it, you see the large number of particles coming into the atmosphere. You call the meteor shower. So when such a thing happen, the seed of life can come to the earth. Then could life have evolved spontaneously? Again, this is 10th standard thing which probably you remember, and that is Stanley Miller and Harold Urey. They did this experiment. They put these gases inside the chamber. Then they thought that at the time Earth was formed, there was a lot of lightning, so electrodes were placed. And then what happened after a week's time or whatever? Okay, you found the fatty acid, ammonia, everything that is needed for life form inside that. Only problem is that when this change took place between the chemicals and the life as we understand what we have today. Okay. So, so the life could have formed naturally, but but when this chemical actually made changes from chemicals to life, that we still do not know. Okay. But it does not answer one thing, and that is how at the first time the life itself has come. That answer we still don't have. Okay. Then either way, it suggests that life must exist elsewhere in the universe. Okay. Because whatever we have discussed so far, it looks so common that therefore life should exist elsewhere in the universe for sure. But then question is that does it really exist? Or at least intellectual life like ours, intelligent life like ours, does it exist? We will answer that question. Okay, but what we know is that once life starts, it flourishes. Okay, species evolved by natural selection. We know about the Darwin's theory that it starts and it evolves, and you have depending on survival of the fittest, and it all goes on. Except that it takes a lot of time. It takes a good lot of time for life to evolve and come to this particular stage. Oh, this can be brought closer also, yes. Okay. So what we will do is we'll try and to understand how life came on Earth. Okay. We will look into that particular issue, and then I can talk to you about the history of Earth is something like 4.6 billion years. So we can talk about this thing happened that billion year ago, and so on and so forth. Okay. So what I have done is that just to make it little more comfortable for all of us, that I have done a calendar, 1 year calendar, in which 4.6 billion equal to 1 year. Okay, just to give you general idea instead of handling with such large number. So every 1 day that passes, which is like 12.59 million years. So every day that is going, it is 12.59 million years, 12.6 million years or so. And so let us begin with that. So what we have is that formation of Earth took place at the dot of midnight on 1st of January. Okay. Then between 3 and 4th of January somewhere, we had this accident and moon was formed. Please remember, this is going to be very important in our discussion. And how the moon was formed? Some object came, hit the Earth, material was thrown out, and that object started revolving around the Earth. Okay, and the moon was formed, which is approximately 4.5 billion years ago. But after that, Earth was just cooling down in the ocean form, and oceans are forming 4.6 to 3.8 billion years or so. Thereafter, for a very long time, nothing really happened on Earth, except that towards the end of March and beginning of the April, okay, some living things which seem to have developed inside the sea, but other than that, till November, nothing really happened on Earth. Earth was just a static, no life, it was just a material there. Okay. Then somewhere, which is called the Pre-Cambrian Evolution, single cell organism like blue algae and bacteria started coming towards mid-November, and then this by mid-November, and these creatures, these are trilobites, actually evolved. They came, the first living beings, one of the first living beings which came. Okay, and this happened something like I think, okay, next slide, sir. Okay, but it happened in water, and life on the Earth, there was nothing. Okay, Earth was still without any life. Then we have the single plant began to grow. Okay, that is 460 million years ago. Backbone fishes came. Okay, and about 410 million years ago. Then somewhere towards the end of November, okay, we started getting the first animal which left amphibian, which left water and started coming on the. Yeah, fishes began to leave water. And then around 15th of December, dinosaurs evolved. And when the dinosaurs came, they ruled the land completely. They were the bosses. They were herbivorous, carnivorous dinosaurs. Okay, you know all sorts of names, and they started ruling the land and air and also water. Okay, and as long as they were there, nothing they allowed to evolve. Okay, they were the bosses at that particular period of time. And somewhere around 66 million years or so, for some reason, all dinosaurs died. And that is good in the sense that after dinosaurs died, mammals and birds could flourish. Okay, so that was important point in our discussion, that as long as dinosaurs were there, they didn't allow any other form of life to evolve. But after the dinosaurs is gone, then these mammals and birds started flourishing. That happened towards 25th of December. It took some more years, that is, sorry, so yeah, some more years or few on our scale, few more days before the first vague human form started walking on the surface of Earth. Okay, by 31st late evening, they started occupying. Okay, on the land they evolved there, and thing was that they made tools. That is the most important thing. That these animals actually they started making tools, and interestingly, these animals they had this one great property that all of us we have, that our thumb and index finger can join. No other animal can do that. And why this is joined now, with this accident, you can throw things away from you. That's a very important factor, that once you can hold something and you can throw, but not other animals can do that. So these animals came, and it was a beautiful era. Everybody was very happy, if you know this. Okay, it didn't last for too long a period. Stonehenge lasted just about till about 1145. Okay. Uh, and after that, the first sign of civilization, as we understand, started coming around 1154. So all that we are today is the last 6 seconds of that 1 year's history. Just imagine that we talk about it. All what we are today, whatever we have seen, that has happened in just last 1 6 seconds of that entire 1 year history of the Earth. Okay. So that's the short period that we have lived. Okay, we will come back to this thing later on. But having said this, now let us see how big our universe is. Okay, this is one factor. So next factor, next thing that we will see, how big our universe is. So let us see cosmos. So let us begin with our home, that is Earth, which has a diameter of 12,756 kilometers. That is Earth. After Earth, you go, okay, Pluto, okay, it is a dwarf planet which is far away. The time that it takes is something like 5 light hours. So even if you want to send signal, it takes 5 hours to reach that signal. After that, we have our galaxy, Milky Way galaxy, which we do not see from Mumbai, but you need to go out. And Milky Way galaxy is a huge place, 100,000 light years from one end to another. Okay. Then you have clusters of galaxies, which is what we call the local group, where you have Andromeda galaxy and all other. The Andromeda is bigger galaxy, but the triangular galaxy, then large Magellanic Cloud, small Magellanic Cloud, and so on. So that is our local group. Then you have clusters of galaxies, and finally supercluster. So that huge our universe is. So if you talk about it, then question comes that how many stars? 10 to the power of 21 stars in our observable universe. Remember, right in the beginning we said that we will only restrict ourselves to what we can observe. Okay, and is Sun alone hosting life on one of its planet? That's the question. And then question is that have we seen at least this DNA elsewhere in the universe? You see, because DNA is our part, so any kind of a DNA have you seen existing in the universe? Okay, answer is yes, and that is in giant molecular cloud. If Chintan, my colleague here, if he gets a good enough time, probably he will show you Orion Nebula through the telescope, which is there in the sky. It's a beautiful object. So that's the giant molecular cloud. And how do we see? You use the millimeter radio dish. You have a radio dish and you observe the sky. And what do you get in this? You get such kind of a spectrum where what you are seeing is methanol, hydrogen cyanide, sulfur dioxide, all that is necessary for life, it is existing in that particular cloud. And this is what actually Fred Hoyle was pointing at, that it is this kind of material is which is already there in the molecular cloud. So can't that molecular cloud itself be alive? Okay, and then there are these other things also, like molecular clouds has inorganic and organic things available in that. So all these elements are seen there in the molecular cloud. So what it tells you is that circumstantial evidence, you know, that daya kind of a thing, or whatever that TV serial comes, okay, kuch to gadbad hai wala. So there is a evidence, circumstantial evidence, which tells you that yes, there must be life beyond beyond Earth. Okay. So then is a question, scientifically speaking, or that can we actually estimate how many extraterrestrial super civilization in our galaxy? Can we do some kind of a mathematics, and which was done by Frank Drake, who was a radio astrophysicist or radio astronomer. He gave this equation. It's a beautiful equation which you should see, that the equation is that number of life form elsewhere in the universe has so many factors. So let us deal with these so many factors one by one. So first factor is how many stars, average rate of star formation in the galaxy. Okay, how many stars are formed in the universe, whatever we see. Okay, stars per year. That is one factor which you can find out. Then, because we are talking about life like ours, so we have to talk about how many stars are good suns. Okay, we know that there is a star called Sun. Sun has a planetary system around and so on. So how many stars are the sun-like stars? Okay. Then just sun-like star is not good enough. You need to have a planetary system around it. And now today we know that exoplanet, there are hundreds of exoplanets known. At least there are about 100 planets, exoplanets, which have Earth-like property, very similar to Earth-like property, and so on. So this is found. Okay, planetary system. Then comes the ecoshell. Ecoshell is very important because what we found is that for us to survive, or any form of life to survive, you need water for sure. So how many planetary systems are that they have a water ecoshell around them? And for that there is a beautiful term also people use, and that is called the Goldilocks zone. If you remember the childhood story of Goldilocks, who is a little girl who goes to jungle and enters into a house which is occupied by Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Little Bear. Okay, if you have not read it, please do read it. It's a nice little story. Okay, where she goes and then she sits on a table to eat porridge, and she finds something which is too hot, something which is too cold, something is just right. Then goes to the bed and then she finds something which is too small, something too big, and something which is just right. So Goldilocks zone is that there's something which is just right for us to survive. Okay, so that is the ecoshell that we are talking about. Then fraction of life on which the DNA has developed. Okay, so we come to that. Then fraction of living species that develop intelligence. Now this is a very interesting question about intelligence. How do you define intelligence? Very difficult. You see, we have often talked about our, many of those who have pets at home would go and say that, look, my cat is intelligent, my dog is intelligent, my parrot can speak, and so on and so forth. But number of times, very recently I saw a beautiful video in which a big mirror was placed and the dog barking at itself, at its reflection. Okay, I mean, didn't understand that it's a mirror. But what something they have found is that dolphins, or like for example for human beings, you understand that even if your parents have not told you, or even if you don't tell your child, which is a very young, born about 2 years of age or 3 years of age, you haven't told anything, but if you show mirror to the child, okay, the child understand that I am looking at my reflection. it is supposed to have been studied and understood, that child understand. Similarly, dolphins do understand that they are looking at their own reflection. Not other animals do that. Elephant is an intelligent being, but I'm not too sure whether mirror kind of experiment was done. But dolphins seem to know that very well. You have seen number of movies in WhatsApp messages or videos where dolphin has helped people or animals to from one place to another. Okay, so dolphins are supposed to be intelligent in the water. And another thing is a threat of death, which is real in intelligent life like ours. We do perceive that and we do feel it. Not many animals apparently have that particular fear. Okay. Then lastly, we have this fraction f of c, that is on a okay, which is that intelligent species who have done the electromagnet. Because if you are trying to contact some intellectual being elsewhere in the universe, then the only way to communicate with you is by electromagnetic radio waves. Okay, electromagnetic waves, essentially radio waves. So radio waves, because radio wave can travel across the galaxies without any issue. Okay, on the Earth it comes through the clouds, and through galaxy also it will go through. So only way to know that intelligent being is that radio waves. So have they really developed? Suppose there is a civilization which they have developed the radio waves, then okay, then you can find the signals from them. And then lastly, we have life in communicative phase. This I will discuss towards the end of my talk, at the end of my talk. Okay. So essentially what it tells you is the all factor comes to that it tells you that, okay, approximately, I mean, see, it depends upon what is your, if those parameter, that equation, whatever the factors that you put, but what you see is that there is definitely one form of life which is ours, and then also you have several billion life. Depending upon what numbers you put, you will get the value for L. Okay, and then you take middle option, then you see that, okay, at least there must be millions of life elsewhere in the universe. Okay, so then we go. So circumstantial evidence exists and support that idea of life beyond it. But what biologists think? Okay, we should also consider their thing. And I will go one by one that how biologists think about life on Earth. See, first is comet bringing water to life. See, I showed you that moon came, but there's a theory that water on Earth was not there in the beginning, which was brought by bombardment of comets. So comet came and left, the large comet came and left water, and then ocean was, 1/3 of it is ocean, right? So this water was not at the Earth, but it was brought to Earth by comets, comets hitting the Earth. Okay. The second thing was we needed moon to stabilize the Earth and to bring life on the surface. See, Earth was rotating and then moon was captured. So what had happened is that if moon wasn't there, see, moon brings you what? Moon brings you tides. So if life evolved inside the water, how do you get that life on the surface? And moon has done that. Moon, because it is tides, so basic form of life which came, survival the fittest, all that came later on. Right in the beginning we saw that life first evolved inside the water, so moon was there. And the third thing was extinction of dinosaurs. I told you in that sequence that on that scale, about 25th of December, 6 days before today's time, the dinosaurs extinct and they were ruling the land, and bird and mammals could flourish only after dinosaurs have come. So for us to have to come to this stage, we needed these three accidents, very important accidents. Water to come from comets, then moon to form, and third thing is extinction of dinosaurs. So once you have these three accidents, only then we could come. Otherwise we could not. And then biologists also ask this, that can these accidents take place in universe regularly? How often such accidents would take place? Well, even then, our search for life should continue. And how do we continue about this search? Is that we talk about to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. One of the things is this, that you send a human being, very expensive proposition. After the Apollo mission stopped, in last 30 years, no one has gone to the moon, and man has not left. Only recently we have started talking about Chandra, Gaganyaan and all that. But a very expensive proposition to look for life. The second thing was to send a space probe. This is Voyager. They have just about reached the end of they have gone into interstellar medium now, okay. But it's a very small speed that they are going from one place to another. But this particular spacecraft carried this entire information about our solar system, or where we have come from. So this golden disk has the atom which is drawn, which any intelligent being should understand. Then there are these molecules, and where in the solar system, when in the universe we are located, and so on and so forth. It was like in olden days when the mariners would, if the ship gets hit and castaways, actually they would put their information in a bottle and sell it, hoping that someday someone would find this information and come for our rescue. So it was basically that, but that was an attempt. Okay, so this is a slide which is slightly older, but you know that they have gone too far away. I think I think in another 5 years or so, these spacecraft will even stop sending signals to Earth. They're still sending signals, and we are receiving. We know exactly where they are, but after that, we will not be getting signals from them. They would be gone. They're just crossing the heliosphere. Okay. So then the third option is that by radio messages. You can send radio messages to different parts in the universe, okay, and tell them that yes, there are us. And why should you send a message? Because the way we are interested in finding life elsewhere in the universe, where the way we are interested in understanding that are we really alone. So just imagine that there are some other life form. They also would be equally interested in finding out whether whether there is a life elsewhere in this. So by sending this information, they would at least know that yes, there are some other people like us. And this was done by this Arecibo Observatory. I'll show you later on this slide. But something now mathematically very interesting thing which I am going to discuss with you. And mathematically, this is really fantastic. See this signal which is sent. Okay, these are binary coded signal which is sent. And the top you have digit 1 to 10. Then planets which is 1 to 10, then your what is it, that helical thing you are talking about, DNA, and then size of human being. Then the second last, that yellow thing that you square you see, which represents sun, and 9 planets. That time they called it 9 planets. So there is Earth, which has been shown as a separately, which is below the human being. And then radio telescope is drawn to tell them that look, we are using radio technology. So whatever form of life it is, if they have evolved to the extent, we believe that they would have discovered the method of communicating with radio telescope. Okay, so they would understand that we are there, and then this particular entire signal was decoded into 16 by 79 characters. Okay, dots and dashes, or zeros and 1. And why 16 by 79? It's a very interesting number. You see, it's a factor of 23 by 73. And what 23 by 73 are? They are prime numbers. Beautiful. And why prime numbers? Because nothing in the, as of today we know that nothing in the natural world would generate prime numbers. Prime numbers are fantastically imagination or development of a fertile brain like what we have. So prime numbers are abstract numbers. People have also talked that suppose some extraterrestrial comes and they want to see whether life is there, how should we tell them? You just draw a huge Pythagoras theorem, draw a rectangle triangle and then draw 2 squares, and they would know that this is drawn by some intellectual being. So there are many other factors like that. So how to tell them? So this is how the factor is. And once they know that this 16 by 79, 1679 dots, ones and zeros. So if they catch this number, they would know that this is a prime number, and then they will try to make sense out of it. Well, this was sent on 16th of November 1974 towards the M13, which is a globular cluster in the constellation of Hercules, and that lies about 25,000 from now. So it will take that much of time. The point is that attempt is being made to tell people that yes, there is a life or some kind of a life here on Earth. Okay. Now this is the thing, that this thing collapsed on 1st of December 2020, things were breaking up, and then finally it was destroyed. And other thing that you would recollect this is that golden eye where Charles Brosnan actually acted. So if you have seen that James Bond movie, if you are a fan of James Bond movie, then you have seen the shot of this thing was taken. So that was the Arecibo telescope. Bigger telescope are being built. Now at this time, let me also tell you that there are other efforts which are going on. I don't have the slide for that, but other experiments are going on. So people believe that even if they are not communicated, but radio waves are there. So if you have a large enough telescope, so all our FM and shortwave communication or shortwave signal that we are generating, some signals are directional, but some signals are sent in all the directions. So someone might be able to catch these signals, or if some other place they have developed this kind of a technology, they would also be communicating, and then you should be able to find out. And how do we find out is that once you get the signal, you do Fourier analysis, okay, Fourier transform, you find out the frequencies easily, and then there will be some frequencies which will not come out, and then you know that these are probably generated by some intellectual life. Okay, they are not generated naturally. Okay, so the Arecibo signal, if you put them into one particular format, this is a matrix. So if you put it 73 by 23 characters, this is the kind of picture that emerges, and you put it into 23 by 73 characters, a uniform picture generates. Okay, so idea is this, that once these people catches this signal, they would do this matrix transformation and then see that, okay, one would give us something very random, not making any sense, and one will give you some kind of a sense and try to make sense out of it later on. Okay, so the last method is considered as the most practical, but even today's present technology, I'm almost towards the end of my talk. So today the present technology, what we have is that it demands a patience. I mean, you send the signal and then you get back the reply, so it demands this patience. Okay, so if you are on the earth and you start speaking, is anyone out there? Okay, then you send the signal in all directions, and you get reply from the nearest star 8.5 years later. Okay, just imagine the Proxima Centauri, Alpha Centauri has a planetary system. The signal has gone, they have received it, that you have said hello, and then you wait for 8.5 years before you get their reply. So it demands a lot of patience. So we come to the very last point of discussion is that we have seen that extinction taking place, and then that was not the only extinction, because there were mass extinction which have taken place on after the life has evolved on the earth on this 27th of the 445 million years ago, and then 3 and 7. So even these extinctions have taken place as a general rule. Okay, and then we come to this very thing, that Holocene, which is life, the Homo sapiens, is supposed to have started about 10,000 years ago. The first human being that we talked about, approximately 10,000 years ago. Okay, so can we survive for long? That's the question that we are asking. Is it law of nature that after a civilization reaches a certain point, okay, after it reaches a certain point, it destroys itself? Is it the law of nature? Have we seen something like that? Then answer is yes. That in 1990s, when Saddam Hussein, not many of you would remember this other than people my age group, Saddam Hussein came, and we actually at that point in time we thought that maybe it would lead to a world war. It was such a big thing. Nuclear weapons were sufficient amount of nuclear weapons. Just few days ago you might have seen that video where it says that if nuclear war starts, we will not survive for long. So such a thing was possible. Okay, so people thought about it. Then there were these AIDS, which again I remember there were lectures in Ayuka where people say that it is multiplying so fast that it will kill the life on the earth, surface of earth. At least human beings. It is spreading so fast. So is it that possible? The third thing was global warming. Is it really global warming that is thing? And since you are all grown-up people, so I can show you a little naughty cartoon which says that proof for global warming. Okay, fortunately after 1990s, there has not been very change in the global warming. But coming to this particular thing, so it's a beautiful cartoon which came just about few years ago, not too long ago actually. It was dated 3316, okay, 2016, and the cartoon says that those things lasted for 600 and 165 million years before they made me mad enough to kill them off. Uh, Let us see how well you guys do. And what happens just after that? Just 3 years later, we know we were inside the homes for 2 years. It is just now that we are coming out. And the scary part is the last one, that as this is happening, just yesterday I put this slide, that this is happening. So it is telling us that we need to survive. We need to be alive for a long time to come, at least another 50 years we should survive. If we survive for that long, then possibly we will be able to tell someone. But if it's a law of nature that you come to a certain stage, I think I'm ending my talk at a very bad note, that if it's a law of nature, that after reaching a certain stage, you destroy yourself, then there is no chance of finding life or at least meeting any life elsewhere from the universe. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you. I know there are, I can take questions from you next 15 or whatever time. Yeah. I suppose, as far as we are concerned, that is automatically happening, right? I don't know whether there's a law that states, but what we have seen that you evolve by getting the information from the past generation. So that is what seemed to be happening. Except that other animals, because of whatever their physical condition or mental conditions, they have not evolved. But Homo sapiens before that, that was Homo erectus, and then there was another. Neanderthals. We killed them actually. If you read that Sapiens, we killed them, our nearest neighbor. We killed them off to survive. Neanderthals. Yeah, Neanderthals. We killed them. Yeah, but yeah, more information is more smart, but uh, how that to smart in what sense again? Like you can be very smart to go and attack another country and start a fight, or you become a smart and say that look, okay, fine, you are doing mischief, but be there, we will sort these things out. So how you use your smartness depends upon your mental setup, right? Yeah, we have. I don't know if we have defined. Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Correct, you are right about asking this question, but thing is that we don't know. See, suppose there is a see, one thing we certainly know, that molecules and atoms and all that they're elsewhere in the universe. What we see so far, we have not seen neither gods nor demons, okay, or ghosts, okay. So we have not seen them, and therefore we cannot predict what kind of thing we should send them so that they would understand what we are sending them. So we are limited. See, right in the beginning, I started telling you that we are limited with what we are today and what we know about ourselves. So that's our basic limitation. No, sorry, I didn't get you. Yeah. fact, you are right. You should read that particular novel. See, that was way back. I don't know. I think it was around 50s. It was written 1950s. So 50 or 60 around that time it was written. But that is what his theoretical conjecture was. That is what he proposed. And that was the idea which he has suggested. But still we haven't received. I mean, suppose there was a cloud which has catch this particular signal or has used this method to check out there is a life on earth. But that has not attempted to reply back to us. Also, as you saw that even if you have a cloud which is or intelligent being which is close to about say end of our solar system, still it is going to take 20 to 25, 30 years before we can, days before we can get this information. Not days, years before we can get the information. So it has gone that far. So if you just talk about it, then conjecture, okay, you are different kind of a life form, then people haven't worked out. See, people have also talked about, I mean, I remember that if you talk about, say, you make a scientific guess as to what kind of a life form you could have, say on Mars. So today what we understand is that Mars has subterranean water in it. So people imagine that Mars atmosphere is rare, okay, Mars has no atmosphere. So the life on Mars or creature on Mars probably will have a elephant like trunk which can dig inside. You saw echidna who digs inside the earth and catches the ants, okay. So similarly it could have a tongue, nose, a long nose which would go out and take water, okay, and have huge ears and to listen because air is rarefied. So if you want to understand each other, communicate, you probably would have to huge ear, huge antennas to receive the signal. Then suppose there was a life on Venus, and that life was very interestingly called in English oucher poucher. And why? Because Venus is so hot that if you stand on it, you see lead would melt. So life would form there, and then life would always stand on it will have two legs. But all this is science fiction. Don't take it as a science. I'm just only talking about science fiction. So that life would stand on a one leg, then it'll say ouch. So it lift the leg and put another leg down, it'll say ouch again. So it will be keeping doing that. Or if you have a life on Jupiter, there is no land on it. So it would be probably floating life like a submarine. So it will go from one place to another. Yeah. Now, are you saying that can Earth itself be a living entity? Yeah, but look, we have given the thing in the beginning that Earth should be able to duplicate and protect itself, right? If tomorrow, if there is a asteroid coming and going to hit Earth, Earth will not be able to protect itself. You see, people have actually in the early days. Nowadays, it has become much more easier. But remember, initial days when you used to have green screen computers, PC80s and PC60s, and then we got this computer virus started coming in. I think the first virus was originated by some Pakistanis, and later on this virus has spread. The viruses knew how to duplicate themselves, and people have started checking whether could we call these viruses a life. Okay, they were all mathematical equation. It was a computer program, which even if you try to remove virus, you can they would duplicate themselves. But then later on, better vaccines came, and then you removed the virus. So the computer virus is not a life again in itself. So if you have a planet which is far away, but if that planet cannot, even though it has some kind of a life evolve on it, say plantation evolve on it, but it will neither duplicate itself nor it will be able to protect itself. Yeah, but we do not have any way of knowing now how they communicate. Except probably, if you remember, there was another beautiful movie, Doctor Dolittle. The doctor would communicate with animals. He knew how to communicate. It's a nice movie. First, it was get with Rex Harrison, right? And then that, yeah, it's a beautiful movie. So, but beyond that, I mean, that is a movie, but we don't know how to communicate with them. So, if you do not know how to reach out to them, then how will you reach out? So, that is our premise here. Well, I think, uh, yeah, so maybe what I'll do is I'll just say one little thing which you to remember, or as a science student, uh, when you actually argue with your colleagues or friends from other branches, you see one of the standard discussion topic that comes when you little grow up and then you say I'm a science and talk about is UFO. I thought someone would ask UFO, so I was leaving it. But let me tell you about very interesting theory about UFOs. If people talk about UFOs are coming, so just give a few more minutes and okay. See the idea of UFO. Now people don't call it anymore UFO, unidentified flying object. There is a flying object which you have not identified. That is all. But it is not to be associated with some extraterrestrial being coming. So, when we talk about searching for life, see, people have come up with very interesting theories. That is, what you could do is that you can send human beings in a hibernation form. That you take out the blood, okay, inject liquid ammonia, okay, liquid nitrogen, sorry, okay, in the state of hibernation, and then you send that human being in the spacecraft like you have sent the Voyager, okay, and then it goes and goes and goes, and at some point in time the computer detects everything is now very running on a very minimum power. Then computer gets to know because probably reaches some star and then solar cell gets the energy, so it knows, and then it wakes up that person. Okay, interesting idea. But today we know that your heart can't be stopped. Heart can be actually stopped in an ice box for about 20 minutes or so. Okay, but then after 20 minutes, the anesthetist will tell the doctor that doctor, now it's a time to wake him up. So better close it fast. Okay, so that is one. Second thing people have talk about life is that you just imagine, say 1920 age group. Okay, so by your kind of age group. Okay, so select something like 20 people, 20 human beings, men and women of that age, send them in a spacecraft, okay, and what they will do is that they will multiply themselves, okay, and then over a period of time you have second generation, third generation, fourth generation and so on. So even though the first generation doesn't see any life, but nth generation would do. But there's a very big major problem with this theory. The theory is that the problem is that why don't we marry between our close relatives? Okay, because the next generation comes up with a flaw in it. So when you go to the some nth generation, they will be all brothers and sisters, and what is a guarantee that the next generation would come out as intelligent as you are? And lastly, just imagine that for a person like you, what is the biggest, difficult, or worst punishment that I can give you? You think of some worst punishment that can be given to a person. Any idea that? Okay, beating 100 lashes and all that is very nothing. An intelligent person, you put him in isolation, not communicate, you are destroyed that human being completely. Okay, so then same thing, these people who are traveling for so many years, they are in a complete isolation. They will not remain as human as they are. Now reverse the argument. The nearest star possibly you might see today is the Aldebaran, which is 65 light years. Now today, the technology is, so say they take a nearest star, okay. We haven't reached anywhere beyond certain, I mean, these spacecraft are traveling with 70 kilometers per hour or something. It's a, so, yeah, so small, less. But just imagine, for the sake of imagination, that you could travel 1/10 of the speed of light, okay, and going to the nearest star, you will take 42 years. So if, and people retire at the age of 60, 62. So 20-year-old chap starts traveling to a nearest star. By the time it reaches the nearest star, is 60 years old, right? So then reverse this argument of people coming from other stars to Earth. Then, having traveled so much, will they remain the same kind of people? Doesn't look like that. Okay, they will not remain. And then lastly, the most difficult or important question that we need to answer is that having come all the way from star which is 100 light years away, from which is a 1/10 of the speed of light, it will take 1000 years for them to come. Having come here, they just pick up some dog, cat, or some simpleton from the road. Why don't they pick up scientists or politicians or economists or so people, intelligent people on earth to communicate and find out what kind of life it is? So that now this UFO story, many a time people you will see on the television also, every now and then someone comes up and they say that we found Yeti and all sorts of things. Doesn't hold good when the science comes. Okay, I think. Stop here. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah.